back. This is Boomer Life on CL 650.
Do your ears hang low? Do they wobble to and fro? Can you tie them in a knot? Can you tie them in a bow? Can you toss them over your shoulder like a continental soldier? Do your ears hang low?
Well, Dr. Ted really likes that one. I seem to remember that.
I do. I remember
from
that.
Grade school, more than a few years ago.
It was never a radio song that I know, but it was some kind of a nursery rhyme. I'm trying to remember
last time I played that on the radio, and it's just not happening for me. Our producer, Dwayne Bishop, has found another gem. It's Boomer Life on CIL 650. Sterling Fox with you, joined in studio by audiologist Dr. Ted Venema from NexGen and Mainland Hearing Centers all over British Columbia. NexGen, by the way, is NexGen, nexgenhearing.com, if you want to check them out online. And Dr. Ted is in the middle of describing and helping us understand a whole lot more about the human ear as those of us who are boomers come to terms, however reluctantly, with the fact that hearing loss is part of the human condition. It happens as, well, you get your boomer's card.
There you go.
And you can pretty much count on somebody going, are you talking to me? I can't hear what you're saying. It's a normal human condition.
Yep.
That combined with what you were talking about earlier, the fact that we, particularly here in North America, particularly in urban North America, are surrounded 24/7 by noise pollution.
Yep.
You combine the aging, the natural erosion of hearing due to aging, you combine that with pretty intense noise pollution. You got a lot of boomers who are going, what? What'd you say?
That's right. That's right.
And so many of us, Dr. Ted, have difficulty taking the next step, which is stop walking around going, what? What did you say?
No.
And taking a flippin' hearing test, for crying out loud.
It's well known 1 in 10 Canadians has hearing loss.
Right.
10% of people walking around. So in a country of 30 million people, there's some 3 million people who have very aidable hearing loss.
Right. And I suppose that's the most frustrating part, despite the fact that, and there are multiple reasons that people don't get this detail attended to. And the frustration, I suppose, from the point of view of a professional like yourself, an audiologist, is, well, these people don't need to be walking around going, what? What did you say?
Well, you know, the market is only about 20% penetrated. Only about 20% of those 3 million people in Canada actually wear hearing aids.
Right.
20% of people who should or could benefit from hearing aids actually do wear them.
And that's a pretty low number.
That's a low number.
Let's get back to the lesson at hand, Professor Venema, if you would, because we were talking about the. Let me just recapture all of this, if I can. The outer ear consists of that thing, that fleshy part hanging off the sides of all our heads, and the outer ear actually goes all the way up to the eardrum.
Yep.
And you can pretty much reach in and touch your eardrum
Almost.
with your little finger.
With a Q-tip, you'd do it, but don't put that in your ear.
Okay, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit, because that's I want to come back to that. I had a mom with a little baby asked me about that, as if I'm supposed to know about these things. But I know someone who does, I told her. So that's why I got to ask you on the radio. So the middle ear is on the other side of the eardrum, and it contains the 3 smallest bones in any human being's body.
Yep.
And so how big an area is that before we get on to the inner ear?
It's a closed space about the size of a sugar cube.
Okay.
It's small. It's just, and the 3 little bones are inside of there. Those 3 little bones could all fit on a U.S. penny, as I've said. And that the floor of that little sugar cube, that middle ear space, which is just filled with air, like in this room.
Okay.
And has the 3 little bones. The floor of that space is the opening of the eustachian tube that goes down to your throat. And it's the middle ear that gets infected. When kids get earaches.
I used to get them like crazy when I was a little guy.
You have a sore throat.
Couldn't believe the pain.
And the infection of a sore throat goes up those eustachian tubes to your middle ears.
So why do kids get them, and why don't we get them as often as we used to when we're big people?
Babies have shorter faces, and that eustachian tube in babies is more horizontal. In adults, that tube going down from your middle ear to your throat is more vertical because our faces grow longer.
See, I used to get them when I was in elementary school. When I was at a grade 1 through maybe grade 3 or 4, I can remember actually having to leave school and come home.
When you hit puberty, your face, your skull elongates.
Oh.
And that elongation of the skull makes the eustachian tubes that connect the middle ear to the back of your throat. It makes those more vertical. So now you got gravity working on your behalf.
See, I can remember.
It keeps the infection out.
This is something I wanted to ask you about. I guess I'm kind of living proof that it doesn't. But I can remember as a little boy coming home and going to the doctors with these horrible hearing, aches, earaches, and my mom, being very concerned that because I got them so often and because they were so intense that this is going to affect my hearing as an adult. And the doctor would say, not likely.
Not likely.
But Mom was really concerned.
Well, sure. Usually it's medically treatable. See, outer ear problems, wax, middle ear infections are medically treatable.
Okay.
And then once remedied, you're pretty well good to go again.
Okay.
Okay. It's if you don't do anything about it. The roof of your middle ear space, by the way, is 1/8 of an inch thick. And what's above it? The brain.
Oh, really?
So untreated chronic middle ear infections can lead to infection of the bones surrounding the middle ear, and the worst chapters terminating in meningitis.
Oh, my.
So treat ear infections carefully. See a physician. Get it rectified. There's antibiotics, but people have done tonsillectomies. Remember, we were kids, everybody did tonsillectomies?
I had mine out twice.
Yeah.
The first
grew
guy,
back.
That's right. The first guy did a terrible job, and they grew back.
Yeah.
And I didn't mind the second time because they gave me all the ginger ale and ice cream my little body could stand.
Yeah.
But we all got them in those days. Everybody had their tonsils out.
And it was one of the big it was a prevention against middle ear infection.
Interesting.
See, that's why they did that.
Dr. Ted, we're talking hearing, and we're talking the middle ear, and I feel the need to ask you about balance, because somewhere inside everyone's ear is some kind of deal that affects our balance.
That's right.
That doesn't necessarily, in one way or another, affect our ability to hear.
Yeah.
So where's all that take place?
Well, that's the part of the inner ear. The inner ear actually has two parts. The cochlea, or snail-shaped ear, the hearing part, and then it has this little cauliflower thing stuck to it. It looks like these 3 round little canals, and that's your balance organs.
Okay.
Now, balance also has tiny hair cells in it. That organ has tiny hairs in it as well, and fluid. So your balance and hearing share the same fluids, and they both have these tiny little hair filaments inside. And your balance organ changes head and body movement into electricity because the fluid moves in there. And it's interesting. Those little 3 canals are at perpendicular angles to each other, like a floor and 2 walls of a room. So any which way you turn your head is going to activate and move the fluid in there.
Okay.
And that's going to tell you where your head is in space without you looking at it.
Well, we've learned.
And so balance is like a primitive hearing. Balance is necessary for life. Hearing isn't.
I was just going to say, we've learned from the Paralympics, and I can remember one European athlete here in Vancouver a few years ago at the Winter Games. This person was born profoundly deaf.
Yeah.
They had never heard anything in their life. And they were an athlete. They were an Olympic athlete, and they were simply sensational. They had balance like I could only dream about. So the fact that the balance organs are right there with the hearing stuff, but they're completely independent of each other.
They are. They serve different purposes. Balance begins at 3 weeks gestation. Hearing doesn't. Hearing begins later. So it's almost like the course of 9-month gestation is like a small view like of evolution. Balance evolved before hearing.
Interesting.
Hearing is a luxury sense built on top of balance.
Okay.
That's how you can think about it.
So the balance organs are also in the inner ear, along with this fluid-filled snail shell.
Yeah, snail cochlea, C-O-C-H-L-E-A.
Which is Greek for snail shell.
Greek for snail shell. Now that organ, you got it. That organ is as big as the tip of your little finger.
Okay.
Just like the middle ear space is about the size of a sugar cube.
This is where all your hearing happens. It's something that's the size of the tip of your little finger.
This is where all the news is.
This is amazing,
without
folks.
an inner ear, you're deaf as a post.
Okay.
As we've talked about, the outer ear resonates and brings sound in. The middle ear helps airborne sound activate a fluid-filled inner ear. Now we're talking the inner ear, that fluid-filled. You unroll that snail, it's a little bit more than 1 inch long. It's about 3 to 3.5 centimeters unrolled, if you took the snail shell and unrolled it.
Right.
And all along the length of that little 1 inch long thing, unrolled cochlea, is 3 chambers that run along its entire length, as well as hair cells.
Okay.
Now, the outer two chambers, they just contain cerebral spinal fluid, the fluid that surrounds your brain.
Okay.
That's all they have in them. But it's that middle chamber where all the news is at. That middle chamber has the opposite chemical composition of fluid as in the outer two chambers. And as we know in batteries, the opposites create electricity.
Sure.
Okay, that's what creates the current.
Right.
And the hair cells are all inside that middle chamber of the cochlea as well. So that middle chamber has the opposite chemical composition of fluid from the outer two chambers, and it contains 15,000 of these hair cells.
And these are the ones that once damaged cannot be repaired.
That's correct.
And so are these the ones, those 15,000 hair cells, is that basically our hearing?
That's your hearing. That's
right
it. Right there. That's the center of the universe.
Wow.
They are arranged like keys on a piano. And just like all the bass is on one side of the piano and trebles on the other side, it's the same with the hair cells. Now, the treble hair cells happen to be located at the entrance to that snail shell. And just like the carpet, as we said, the carpet in front of your doorway, that gets dirtiest the quickest.
Sure.
All activation of that cochlea has to go through the treble hair cells to get anywhere else.
So treble is likely to be first gone.
It's likely to be first gone.
Interesting.
Yep.
And does it always all go, Ted,
No.
or does it just break down and become difficult
by
to...
degrees? You can have mild hearing loss, moderate, severe, severe to profound.
When we come back, I need to take a quick break here.
Sure.
When we come back, I want to talk about cleaning our ears, and then I want to find out more about this whole business of lease to hear, which NexGen and Mainland have got. This is. I mean, again, it's all about sticking pins in balloons full of myths.
There you go.
And you talked about earlier. It's an intimidating factor for a lot of people. You know, I'd consider the hearing aid route, but gosh, man, I've heard, they're really expensive. Well, they're not. They're just not. They're more affordable than you can even imagine. And we'll tell you how that works. And we'll give you a few tips on cleaning the old ears. Or maybe not.
Exactly.
Maybe the doc says, just keep your hands out of there. We'll find out when we return on Boomer Life on CL 650.
Celebrating the baby boomer lifestyle. This is Boomer Life on CL 650.